The family, as God designed it, is under constant attack in our culture today. What is the church doing to equip and strengthen families? Stick around, and we'll talk about that with our special guest today on Here at Home. Welcome to the Here at Home podcast, a podcast about the people here at McGregor, their stories, their ministry, and their love for Jesus. My name is Mark Bricker, and if this is your first time joining us, welcome. And if you're enjoying the Here at Home podcast, I would encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. That way, you'll get each new episode we create delivered right to your podcast player. So join me in welcoming our guest for today's podcast, Chad Moore. So glad to have you on the show today, Chad.
Thanks, Mark. It's good to be here.
I know. It's been a long time coming, but I'm glad we finally got you here. Now, this is not your first podcast because you're on the preaching team here at McGregor. You've had a chance to do the Beyond the Notes podcast.
Yeah, that one's a little more lonely, though.
It is. Yeah, it's just you and the camera, but it's two of us today, and we have a chance to do a little talking. So I thought it would be great to get started so our listeners can maybe get to know Chad a little bit better. So let's start with some of the basics. Tell us a little bit about your family first.
My wife and I have been married for 14 years.
Wow.
And we have two little girls. Oldest is 6. Her name is Eva. And our youngest is 3. Her name is Elena. And they are nonstop activity and giggling and whatever
it's Chad
else.
And a bunch of girls.
Got a female dog at home as well. I am completely surrounded.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Hey, where were you born and raised?
Born and raised in Orlando, Florida. We lived in Ohio for a brief time when I was a baby, where my brother was actually born. But then we moved back to Orlando not long after that. And so lived in Orlando for basically the first 26 years of my life.
So very much a Floridian.
Yep.
Yeah. Tell us some things, maybe 2 or 3 things that would help our listeners know who you are a little bit better. Tell us some things about you that maybe might give a little insight into
3 things.
Yeah.
I guess one is, I've always been into sports. I follow usually most major sports leagues and played a lot of sports growing up. Soccer being the one that I played for the longest.
Is that your favorite?
It is, yeah. Might be the one that my stature most directs me towards as well. But yeah, play some baseball, basketball, soccer. I like the continual nature of soccer. The sports that start and stop are the ones that got a little boring to me. Yeah. And so kind of settled in on soccer and been playing, did that for a long time. Got out of shape for a little while after high school, and I was looking to get back into shape and be healthy, and actually ended up running 2 marathons when we lived in South Carolina. And so one down in the Kiowa, down on the coast, and the other one in Columbia through all the hills and all that.
That's interesting because a lot of people will get that one marathon in and like, I've done one, but you did 2. So
I did 2. Yes,
it's not a fluke.
Don't know why I did 2. I guess the first one I wanted to do one better than the first one, I guess, and then.
But you're done now, right? Yeah.
I am. I haven't done that. Man, I think that might have been before we had Eva. If not, it was when she was really little. I haven't done any long distance running and stuff since we've had 2 little ones. Yeah. But that's 2. Third one, I guess, would be the fact that I like the idea of reading more than the actual reading itself. I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning new things. Love trying to solve new puzzles and figure things out. But the sitting down and being still long enough
to read a whole book,
to actually read a whole book is one that's just not, it doesn't come natural to me. And so I got to force myself to read it. Once I get going, I usually enjoy it, but much more of a podcaster type person like this.
Like this. Yeah. I can relate to that because there are a lot of books that I have bought and I have started, but I don't always finish them. But.
Yeah, Lorraine just teased me today about some of the stacks of books that I have in my office that she said, when's the last time those moved? Yeah. Well, those are resource books.
Yeah, you never know when you might need that.
And stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the important part is learning. as you go through.
And you would definitely consider yourself a lifelong learner.
I hope to be.
I would agree with that. This is something I've just recently started, and I didn't even tell you about this, but I call it the speed round. And you're familiar with this because you've done these kind of questions with students. I think I probably even got the idea from you years ago from this. I'm just going to ask you a couple either or questions, and you just quick, first thing that pops in your mind.
Okay.
I might follow up with a little.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it is. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Beach or mountain?
Mountain.
Exercise or nap?
Exercise.
Texting or talking?
Texting.
If you had a superhero power, invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
This tells a lot about you.
I'm sure someone's has a psych chart going on right now. Yeah.
Well, I'll give you the score later. No, I'm just kidding. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
I knew that one. Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Neither.
That's fair. Yeah, both Chad and I enjoy coffee. Good coffee, preferably, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Tell us how you came to know Christ.
Oh, I was middle school age. I believe I think I was 11 at the time. But yeah, we were at used to do Sunday night worship services back in the day, and I was at a Sunday night service. Heard the gospel before that, but sitting in one of those evening services, listening to the pastor lay it all out. I felt God, move, and came to that moment that all of us believers get to at some point where it all clicks as God's moving in our lives and our hearts of realizing you're a sinner and just how broken you are without Him. And I told my mom, hey, I want to go forward at the end. I went forward, prayed with a counselor to receive Christ, and I think it's a journey for everybody. That's what I look back towards, and yet. I think if we're all honest, there were a number of times after that moment in our lives where we're like, please God, if it wasn't real then, please let it be real now. And helping students through that process is something that's always difficult. And so, accepting Christ young like that, there was definitely a growth journey. I believe I was 11. I know I was in middle school, but I think I was 11 at the time.
Yeah. Talk, obviously, I'm sure there were a lot of sanctifying moments along the way as you grew in your faith. But talk about your call to full-time vocational ministry, and where were you, when, what age, and kind of the context for that.
I was I believe it was a sophomore summer, but after my sophomore year, or before my sophomore year, we went on a mission trip to Montreal with World Changers, and up until that point, I didn't really have any idea on what I was going to do, vocationally. Didn't have, had different thoughts on this and that, but nothing that really had really set in with me. And there was one of the nights at our World Changers week where they talked about whether or not we would see ourselves possibly in vocational ministry or in missions, or something like that. And it got me thinking. A friend of mine got to thinking about that night as well, and kind of sent me down that journey of trying to consider that, because I don't have anyone in my family that was in the pastorate or worked in church and stuff, and so that was a different world,
kind of a new concept.
Yeah, than what I'd seen. And so the way that my pastor at the time laid it out, he basically said a calling to ministry looks kind of like if you can't see yourself doing anything else and being satisfied in life, then you're called to ministry. And that's kind of where I started to hone in on, is there anything else? And there wasn't. And so, I went to UCF with the expectation of graduating from there and going to seminary and getting a degree and working in ministry. And, a lot of things happened in between, but that's where it started, was in high school.
That's pretty neat. And between your sophomore and junior year?
Yeah, it was. We went to Canada twice. I believe the first time was in between freshman and sophomore year, and then we went back the next year. The reason
I asked that is because for myself, I was at it was a Christian music camp. I was very much into music, and I was at this camp that summer between my sophomore and junior year, and that I too felt beginning the first time, this is something I feel that God may be leading me to do. My dad was a pastor, and so I kind of didn't want to go into ministry because I was a preacher's kid.
Yeah.
That was the last thing I wanted to do. But so it's to start to feel that at that age, and there were times when even later on in college where I kind of I don't know if that's really what I want to do. But God continued to hone in on that for me as well. So yeah, we had that very similar point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So speaking of calling, let's talk a little, because obviously you have had, first of all, how many years of full-time ministry now do you have under your belt?
I started in the fall of 2008. And so what's that math? 13?
13. Yeah. 13 years.
Will be 13.
And then the call to come here to McGregor, what was the time frame? Let our listeners know kind of how long you've been here and kind of when you started here, and we'll talk specifically about that transition too.
It was what came here in the fall of 2017, if I have the years right. Going back in years is one that I always have to bounce off my wife. She's much better with the long-term timing memory.
You know what I tie it to?
Yeah.
Irma.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt it was Irma. The question it becomes, what year was Irma in my mind?
Irma? You could just say, I came to hear Irma.
Yeah. But we actually had to push back one of my trips down here to visit. I can't remember if it was the first or the second one because of Irma. And, I remember the first time we came down here, everything was fine. I remember watching the storm on my iPad while we were in South Carolina, wondering, will there still be a McGregor after this week to even go to, if that works out that way? And then the second time we came down was, there were disaster relief people living on campus, and nobody knew where the life group was going to be, and it was what, a couple weeks afterwards.
Yeah, the hotel you were staying in was like a staging parking lot for like power workers or something, or
there was a bunch of power trucks.
That's what it was. I remember.
Trying to get the power turned back on for everybody. And so that'll always be an easy thing to remember of it being right around the hurricane there.
Yeah. So it was and this is all kind of part of that coming to McGregor for you, but you had been down here, had the visit before, like you said, had a chance to see the campus, see the community, the whole thing. And as we go through that process, even with Irma, we continued to move forward and ultimately extended a call, and you guys accepted and you came. But now you come to a different McGregor because just physically, it's quite different, because prior to Irma, we had a student building. Post Irma, we didn't.
Yep.
And there was I thought of all the things that could happen to create problems or obstacles for somebody. You want to set someone up when they're first coming in to succeed, right? That's the goal. You want them to get off on a good foot, and we're like, glad you're here, but sorry, you've got nothing to work with.
Your office is blocked off due to contamination and mold. I think we've joked around about it looking back of if I knew that was going to be the only time that I saw parts of the campus, then I would have taken pictures as we walked through.
Yeah, really.
The only time seeing the Grace Building pre-Irma, I remember us walking through some of the preschool area, and at the time not even knowing which back door you had brought us through, but we never saw that whole area again.
Ever again, yeah.
And so it was unique.
It was unique. I think that's one of the neat things, though, about you and your ministry here, is that in the midst of all the difficulties, the obstacles, the lack of resources, you're like, all right, we can make this work, and somehow you did. And meeting in buildings and rooms where other adults are, that's not conducive for students, but you pulled it out. How long was it before you got back into the student building?
Oh, we started back in the Grace Building in January of 2019.
Wow.
And so got started here in October 2017, and so was that 15 months?
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, well.
All right. Well, we started this podcast mentioning that the family is under attack. So I guess we better talk a little bit about families, because your role changed at the beginning of this year of 2021, and 2021 was really a transition year for that. That it wasn't all of a sudden just boom, January 1. You know everything looks different. But let's talk a little bit about your new title, because when you came, it was Minister to Students. Now it's Minister to Students and Families, right? Is that the Did I get it right?
Family Ministries.
Oh, and Family Ministries. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So you got minister and ministries in there.
Well, I mean, pays based on the letter.
The more letters, the more. There you go. All right.
Squeeze as many in there.
Can you get it on a business card?
You can fold it.
Yeah, there you go. So that new role took shape, starting to begin to develop even in 2020. Obviously, as we began talking about that, and you and I had many conversations about that possibility of giving you more responsibility, and specifically as it relates to the entire family ministry. So let me start with define for our listeners, when we say family ministries, what do we mean?
Yeah. For one, on campus, it encompasses from pretty much birth through college. And so I oversee the preschool and children's ministries, and then more directly oversee the middle school, high school, and college age levels. And so trying to bring all those under the same umbrella, under a similar approach to ministry. Not that we were widely ranging to begin with, but hopefully in a way that's more unified so that we can better partner with parents.
Right.
Because the goal is to help parents disciple in their home first and foremost, and then and better partner with them when we're on campus as well. And so not just provide successful, well-run, ministries here on Sundays and Wednesdays and when we have events and different things, but hopefully more of an all-encompassing approach to discipleship and helping parents raise up disciple makers.
I'll give you a chance to really talk about the vision for that ministry in just a minute, but let's back up, because as I mentioned earlier, that when I made the statement, the family is under attack, I don't think we realize sometimes, because it's that slow boil kind of a thing where it's gradual, but when we begin to realize the family as God designed the family to be is, that is becoming less and less the norm. And as I would say, I really think our culture is taking shots at dismantling what the biblical family is supposed to look like. And so as an opportunity for our church to have a person that is said, okay, I have not only a passion, but I also believe I can bring some strategy, some vision, some strategy, some implementation to help come alongside and strengthen all of our ministries to families as well as families themselves. And so with that in mind, what are some of, why is this an important ministry to have? Do you see, the family being under attack?
Yeah, I think the family is absolutely under attack. I think just our each individual family, is under attack by the lies of the culture and the, everything that's that all the spiritual warfare and everything that's going on around all of us. But even just the very family framework is under attack by culture. You have a number of organizations, and the number is only growing, of those who are not only saying that there's another way to do family, but that the traditional family is actually a bad way of doing family, right? It's so anti-family even. I mean, that's how far we've come as a society right now, and it's very unfortunate. It's very much a negative impact on every family because of it. And so yeah, absolutely. The family is under attack, and hopefully we as a church can help strengthen the families that we have the opportunity to impact and influence.
I think of parents like yourself with preschoolers and grade school, and what they're going to encounter just in the school systems, in the culture, and moms and dads maybe not feeling adequately prepared to prepare their children for that, even if they wanted to. And a lot of them, I don't know if they're even thinking about that, but if they were thinking about that, feeling, where do I start? How do I do that? And I think that kind of plays into this vision for family ministry. So share a little bit about your vision of what family ministry could possibly look like here at McGregor.
Yeah. I think we've had a lot of God-honoring, well-meaning families throughout the history of the church, and I think as you go through different portions of history, I think the churches look different, and I think part of what we've seen in America is a church that looks much more like a business, more like with some expertise in different areas, and that some of just our natural ways that we go through life and society have overflown into, or have been kind of brought into the church in a way. And, recently in one of the messages that I preached on Sunday morning, I talked about that concept of, when I was a kid playing soccer and I wanted to play soccer, and my parents said, okay, well, we want you to learn to do this, something you enjoy. That's great. Let's go find a team for you. Let's find a coach, expert type person to train you up in it. And we'll bring you and you can go learn it. They weren't against it. They were supportive of it. They even tried to learn some of it themselves to be a part of that aspect of my life. But that's not what should be the vision for discipleship within our families. It should not be we bring our children to a place where the experts do the job of discipleship.
Yeah.
We're not given a biblical mandate to teach sports to our kids, but we are given a biblical directive to impart and train up our children in the way they should go in their faith. And so, I don't think it's parents all the time wanting to hand over parenting. I think a lot of parents honestly just look at it and say, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to disciple my kid. Here's a church. Here's someone who's been to seminary, who works with students. I can't do what they can do, at least in their minds. I can't do what they can do. So I'm going to bring my kid to be discipled here. And hopefully I can support what they're doing. And yet on the other hand, anyone who's done student ministry for a long time kind of looks at it the opposite way a little bit and says, well, I've only got these kids for 2 hours a week at most. I can't do what the parents can do in terms of discipling, because a parent is discipling their kid nonstop, either positively
one
or
way
negatively,
or the other, right? Yeah.
And so there's only so much that we can do as a ministry to unfortunately counteract some of a potentially negative influence from the home, or to support that influence from home. There's only so much we can do. And so hopefully what we can accomplish through the family ministry is be able to bring those two worlds together. And our desire is to cast a vision for families for what family discipleship is. How can I disciple my kids, and present it in a way that is clear enough that week in, week out, we kind of have a framework to work off of, one that enables us to grow within that framework and not have to leave it behind and move on to something else, and yet is also easy enough to start doing if you've never done it before.
Right.
And so that's a lot of our goal as a family ministry, and for our ministries to partner with parents through that, hopefully present this clear vision of what it looks like in the home, clarify some of that for how that impacts the way we do ministry here at church, and just as much as we can possibly do it, bring those two worlds together for the betterment of all of our kids. That's
that partnership that I know you talk about. And I think we've talked about that a lot in the past even, but it's never had that intentionality of, okay, what does that really look like when both mom and dad and the church are partnering together for that discipleship of those children.
Yeah, there's a lot of churches that take that as just we'll just do a couple events. We'll toss it here, we'll toss it there and stuff, or we'll say some things and have a couple phrases everyone is aware of. But I think a lot of times parents are left going, okay, well, but now what?
Yeah. The framework you were talking about earlier, is that the ALL, is that? Yeah,
we've been working off of in the student ministry that we're going to bring into the family ministry world. Not a vision for discipleship or for for life that's we've put on top of the Bible, but just the Bible mission that we're all presented with. That we're supposed to be raising up our kids into disciple makers, right? Bringing God glory the best.
Nothing
we can
new
do.
here.
And so, but the way that we take that and we try to package it to make it understandable, to make it tangible for people, is to say we want to train up our students in doing what all disciple makers do, that we see three characteristics at play in the life of everyone who's actually living this out. And we use the acronym ALL for that. They apply the word, they love one another, and they live sent. And so that we see as the global mission when you combine church and home for what we're hopefully trying to accomplish with our kids. Obviously, we want them to know how to eat and set a table and clean their room and do good job on their math test and all that. There's other things that we're that happen, but in terms of the ultimate purpose in discipling our kids in their faith is trying to help them do what all disciple makers do.
Yeah, and you're dealing with varying degrees of parents, and I know you've got some that have been doing this amazingly for years with their kids, and
Absolutely.
Others that are still trying to figure out where to start. And so I think by giving some kind of framework that for different parents that can help them in that process of what does it mean to be a disciple, being the primary discipler of my son or daughter or however many kids they have. Yeah. What are some of the things that will look differently in 2021 here at McGregor, and maybe not even until 2022, but what are some of the things that our family ministry team is working on for the future?
Yeah, we've been working on part of that equipping mindset of trying to think through all of our environments, the things we do, of how is this going to not only make an impact in the kids' lives right then and there, and hopefully lasting impact, but also how can we strengthen the family through this? How can we bring parents alongside this? It doesn't look like every time we meet, parents are there, right? It doesn't mean that every parent is serving in one of those ministries right beside their kid. I mean, just the physics don't work behind that. Right. for larger families, right? But trying to come alongside parents more closely than we have before. And so, one of the things we've been talking about is, we live in a time in which most of us rely on alerts on our phones to pop up when we need them to help us, whether it be for a reminder or there's a little blip comes up about something that just happened in the news. We live kind of in that alert mindset and just way of going through with our digital age. And so we want to try to come alongside parents and provide them with tools in the moment. And we think that can be a next step. We can send emails out. Hopefully, somebody reads the emails. Yeah. That just gets depressing. We start thinking about who is actually reading all of our emails. But sending a text to a parent while they're driving home from church on a Sunday or a Wednesday with, hey, here's a few questions you can ask your kid in the car right now to be able to talk with them about what they just learned, and be able to continue that conversation. Sending out making the lessons available to parents beforehand. How great would it be if when a student showed up on a Sunday morning, that's not the first time they're actually talking through that passage because they talked through it with their parents before they got there. Yeah. Either the night before or sometime during that week that we're actually reinforcing what the family's already been doing that week. And so there's so many different ways to go through doing those types of things, but that's hopefully the direction that we're able to make some progress in.
Yeah, that sounds great, because that really does make that a partnership at that point where mom and dad are talking about the lesson prior to them coming into the class, where someone else talks about the lesson and they get to talk about it on the way home or later that day. So a lot of reinforcing the biblical truths. And
we know families are busy. My family's busy. Every family's busy. And so it is it's a balance. And part of discipleship is strategic and planned, and part of discipleship is just taking advantage of the moment you have available to you. And so hopefully we can equip parents to do both of those things.
Yeah. Well, I see you have a lot of great ideas. I mentioned family ministry team a few times. Talk about who that is that's a part of your family ministry team.
Yeah, there's a number of people involved, for both paid staff and volunteers. Candace Furiosi leading the preschool team, and she has a number of individuals that are helping her out with and making a huge impact in the lives of the preschoolers and their parents. Rita Massey with the children's ministry, and then we bring on Kirk Swope recently to be involved in our student ministry and have an emphasis within the middle school world, especially.
Right.
As our ministries grow, it's great to have more people involved in the team making it happen. Absolutely. And the job's huge, and it's never ending. Yeah. It continues every week. There's a Sunday, every week there's a Wednesday, and every week families are going through difficult times, within their homes. Yeah. So it's a great team that that God has brought together here, and look forward to seeing all that He'll do through us.
It is a great team, and to make sure this podcast is never ending, we probably better bring this thing to a close. I want to say thank you, Chad, for being here, and the amazing job that you have done with our student ministry. I see you representing with your MSM shirt on there today, but you really have done just an amazing job at building and equipping, discipling, leading that ministry, and we're blessed to have you on staff here. And I think it gets me excited for our family ministry to continue in that same vein of being very strategic, and especially in those partnerships with parents. So I can't wait. And if parents have any kind of question, if they're listening about the new family ministry, to feel free to give you a call or email or text. And I know you'd be more than happy to talk with them about that. And I know you'll be doing that in the days to come, more with parents having that opportunity to talk specifically about what this will look like.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things headed their way, and for grandparents as well, that can take advantage of some of the things that we're hopefully going to be able to provide, be it the structure or the actual tools themselves, to be able to hopefully, raise up a generation of disciple makers.
Yeah. Awesome. That wraps up another episode of Here at Home. And thank you, Chad, for joining us and being a part of our Here at Home podcast community. Thank you, listeners, also for being part of our Here at Home podcast community as well. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, please take a moment to do that. And while you're subscribing, if you haven't already, I encourage you to check out some of our other podcast channels we have here at McGregor. You can head over to our hereathomepodcast.com website for all the details. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks back here at home.